All right, so now we're live. Chat, say hi to YouTube and behave yourselves. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to take a minute to talk about the new developer update. Oh, it's not going to work. You just did it, Steven. I'm going to stay quiet. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the new developer journal for Dungeons of Sundaria. They've finally made official. I haven't been able to talk about this stuff, but they finally made official on some of the stuff they've been working on, and they touched base on the new dungeon, which is the final dungeon coming out soon, and that's Ragewind Castle. You can actually see Ragewind Castle from the final boss fight of the Festering Bog. It looks pretty cool. And a few months back, they had that patch where they accidentally released Bog and Ragewind before they were done, and I got to run around. But I really want to see it when it's finished. But the two big things in this dev journal, one's at the very end, which we'll get to, but the other one is that each class is getting new skills. Hey, what up, X-Ace? Starting out, I'm just going to go down the list. We have the champion. So they're getting a new skill called Brutal Strike. It strikes your enemy for a set amount of physical damage, and it automatically swaps to your next weapon set. On a successful weapon change, it empowers your next Brutal Strike, dealing a way like 300% increased damage. So if you guys followed the champion breakdown that I did a couple months back, as well as the Festering Bog walkthrough that I did, you can see me use this technique. But I use my troop tech where I swap mid combo with my weapons to get max DPS. And Brutal Strike is a way to circumvent that. So instead of having to hit tab, I will now just be able to use a skill to do fat damage and swap mid combo anyway. And with the way that the combo system works in Dungeons of Sundaria, you can do a skill in between your attacks and it won't break your combo. So you can attack, Brutal Strike, spin to win with your Great Axe, or if you're using the Great Sword, whatever weapon you want to use. Brutal Strike is going to be really cool. Plus, with the new armors that are coming out in Ragewind Castle, they're really going to play into some of these new skills a lot. So the champion gets Brutal Strike. The cleric gets 2 abilities, which I think is really, really cool. It's the only class that gets 2 new abilities. The first one is Justice Strike. You deal a hybrid of physical and holy damage to an enemy, and then you heal for 2% of the damage done. If you are using the new smite mechanic that they put in with the highest set, and there's a set in Ragewind that's also going to utilize the melee smite that Pius has. It's just going to do it in a better way. But Justice Strike will be great because you buff your physical damage based on your spell power. So Justice Strike will be heavily empowered if you're using the Pius set or the new Ragewind set. And then there's Arbiter's Fury, which is kind of like... It seems to be kind of like the Hammerdin from Diablo 2. You conjure a hammer to strike your target, it deals physical damage, and it stuns them for 3 seconds. And then the hammer continues to strike more enemies. It does stun them, which is nice. The stun won't work on bosses. But if I remember correctly, the armor set will give you the potential to have multiple hammers. So the cleric is getting a huge buff to their physical damage aspect, which is really going to play into when you build the elite sets that buff your physical damage based on your spell power. So the clerics are really getting a nice spike in damage, which currently they're at the bottom of the totem pole. And I don't necessarily want the clerics to be the highest DPS in the game, but I want them to at least, be competent and stay with the rest of them. They're very tanky and they have really good heals, but now they have means of doing more damage. The Rangers get Blasting Shot. I remember reading this, and now it's really cool to see it come into play. So you do like a backflip backwards or something like that, and you put mines in front of you. Enemies can trigger the mines to take physical damage, and then they take nature damage over time. So it's physical damage and then like poison. Now the cool thing about Blasting Shot is that the elite armors that are coming out in Ragewind are gonna do a lot with the mines. I don't remember all this stuff, but I think one of them was like the mines could seek out enemies, stuff like that. So the Ranger's going to get a lot more damage that they don't necessarily have to aim, because a lot of, like, when I play the Ranger, I'll miss a lot of my skill shots because sometimes it's a really small window. But with Blasting Shot, you can kind of get away from the damage, and the mines will help keep the enemies away, by either killing them or just damaging them. But blasting shot sounded really cool. I'm excited to see more. I want to see what the elite sets are going to have when it's all done, because I don't remember all of them. So I want to see what they really do now that they've made the skills official. The rogues get ambush, which is another kind of like backstab, but I think this is more of like, instead of teleporting to the enemy, you have to hit them with it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the back. But you have ambush, you'll deal a certain amount of physical damage, but if you also have the stalker effect, which you get from breaking stealth or using phase port or using your heal, you'll get the stalker buff. So if you have that active, which stalker gives you 50% increased damage for a few seconds, but if you have that active, this will consume stalker and deal an additional 300% damage. So it's going to be a fat just burst of damage for the rogue, which I mean is pretty nice. Once they nerf the shadow cloak on rogue, they're gonna really need a lot more burst damage so they can actually kill things. And then wizards, I was really looking forward to this one, and we've seen a bunch of stuff similar in the other dungeons, but they get vortex, which is essentially a void tornado. So you conjure a vortex of void energy that tracks your enemies. It deals void damage per second, and then it lasts for 8 seconds. You've seen them. You've seen ice tornadoes from the bog with that the guy who's with Warlord Torgoth, the little Chancellor guy, and then you've seen fire tornadoes all over the place in the Dreadforge, and then there's also a nature tornado if you're fighting the enraged forest. So now we get to see a void tornado. So I'm really excited to see all of the bonuses for that one, because I actually haven't really seen anything for the wizard. And that's really exciting. I have an idea on what they want to do. They want to make the wizards a little more tanky. Something along the lines of, like, if you have Emberlance active, which are the little circling orbs, each one could give some flat damage reduction, or maybe they'll just change fire armor or something like that. But yeah, Vortex is really cool. So they also mentioned that in addition to the new class abilities, they're going to work on the passives, give everybody a little bit more overall, which is nice. There are some quality of life upgrades coming, such as trade functionality, enhanced camera options, maps, which I think is... I like not having maps, so let's see what they do. There's going to be other improvements, and then the part I'm excited for is that I'm actually hosting an interview here on this channel on the 9th. So in 8 days, I'm recording this now on the 1st. I'm probably going to edit this really quick after my stream and put it on YouTube. So in about a week's time, I'll be interviewing Troop and I think Jason, two of the developers for Dungeons of Sundaria, and it's going to be really fun. So if you guys have any questions you'd like me to ask them, you guys can put them in the comments, and I will compile them together and pick my favorites. But it's going to be a good time. We're going to talk about stuff we want to see, stuff that we know is coming, and then just sort of, I'm going to pick their brain about, like, the stuff they've been speculating about for a while, like the new difficulties and like the new gear system and stuff that the Troop and I have talked about in DMs that hasn't been spoken about. I'll bring it up to see if I can get a little bit more details out of them. And then at the very end, there's a tease. Now they're not saying what this is. They're not saying exactly what this tease is, but I know what it is. All I'll say is you would normally see this border in Dungeons of Sundaria. You'd normally see this border when it's talking about a class. And it would say what the class is at the bottom. So, who's to say what kind of class that is? I'm excited. I'm really excited. But yeah, so cool stuff. Nice little dev journal. Really excited to actually get some official time with the devs to pick their brain. And then, like I said, if you guys have any questions you'd like me to ask them, just leave them in the comments below, or you guys can hop in my Discord and ask me there. But, yeah. So, see you then. 1 week, June 9th.